there is just a momentum that's associated with NATO and our foreign policy, and not just ours, that doesn't allow for, any type of sense of of why we need to have an alliance with a country that such an alliance provokes more potential for armed conflict. And
think about it from Russia's perspective. With the flirtation of Ukraine being in NATO, that means that I don't know how many countries are in NATO, but many countries are allied with them right along their border, and they have this.
Yeah, they have this like a mutual security agreement, and obviously, you want Ukraine to have the opportunity to exist and to grow as a country, but maybe there could be a deal struck. Like, we will, commit to allowing them to maintain some independence as long as you commit to allowing them to maintain some independence. But right now, there is a sense that Russia is, primed to invade Ukraine in some fashion or another. You're starting to see talk of troop deployment, U.S. and NATO troop deployment, different places in that region. So we will see. But here is Tony Blinken on with Dana Bash on CNN. And essentially, one can understand why you wouldn't take certain things off the table, because that's just the way they play this game. But nevertheless, distressing.
One of the things that we've been very clear about, besides the massive economic, financial consequences that would befall Russia if it further commits aggression against Ukraine, is the ongoing, continued buildup of defense capacity in Ukraine, and equally continuing to build up NATO's defensive capacities, including on the so-called eastern flank, the countries near Russia. And the alliance is looking at very practical and important measures that it would take in the event of further Russian aggression.
So you mentioned different kinds of aggression. Let's talk about one specific potential. Russian-backed forces currently occupy part, but not all, of the Donbass region in eastern Ukraine. Would seizing or recognizing the entire Donbass region qualify as an invasion and result in the crippling sanctions that you're threatening?
If a single additional Russian force goes into Ukraine in an aggressive way, as I said, that would trigger a swift, a severe, and a united response from us and from Europe. And again, there are other things that Russia could do that fall short of actually sending additional forces into Ukraine. And again, across the board, we're prepared with Europe for a swift and calibrated and very united response. We're looking at every single scenario, preparing for every single one.
President Biden said an invasion would be the most consequential thing that's happened in the world.
He's really just like leaning into that. I am a serious State Department official voice.
It's interesting, too, that he keeps saying Europe as opposed to NATO. And I wonder if that reflects maybe some dissent within NATO. I mean,
Germany's already been open about their desire not to get involved.
Yeah, it's extremely difficult to tell exactly what's going on here. And but nevertheless, I think, again, this is one of those situations where the aggressiveness and like Stephen Wertheim, pointed out, of George W. Bush in promising NATO membership to Ukraine 15 years ago, some odd, you head down a path, and it's like the mistake was made 15 years ago. Mm-hmm. And it has, and this is where we're at. So it's, we shall see. But we're getting a lot of takes of like, what was it? Joe Scarborough said something, I think, on Twitter. The withdrawal from Afghanistan is what convinced that Putin he could do this. And this is just honestly one of the most like moronic takes possible. One of the most moronic takes possible. If you are a country that wants to invade another country and you are wary of the United States striking back, do you do this at a time where they have no military conflicts, or do they have multiple military conflicts that they're waging? I mean, this is just simple, such obvious. To have nothing, if China had some desire in any way to annex Taiwan, they may. One would imagine the time that they would do it would be when the United States is busy with its hands full in other conflicts. Right. Not when there is, they could literally focus on one. I mean, it's just absurd.
And then there's the other takes where it's everyone's so concerned about Ukraine, right? Which is just, I mean, they see it as a way to exert American might, and what I fear the road that we're going down is involvement that maybe isn't as transparent. Say, like the Washington Post reported the other day that the CIA may be considering funding a guerrilla force in Ukraine, and then it becomes a proxy war, which is part and parcel of a Cold War, and then we move further and further down a road that we can't come back from. And that's the real concern here.
I would be shocked if the CIA is not involved already.
Yeah.
To be honest with you.
Redouble efforts. Michael McFaul, big establishment,
former ambassador to Russia, I think.
Yeah, tweeted out, imagine if during the Berlin blockade in 1948, Truman had said, better not send any planes, Moscow might think it too provocative. There's one dissimilarity is it was 1949 that Russia got nuclear weapons. So just one difference in comparison is maybe we don't want to...
Yeah, it sort of feels like there's a slight difference right now between
the stakes of
Soviet Union's ability for expansiveness. And one could also, point out that, it's not like the Cold War necessarily was the best use of resources over that time.